Find a Way Productions with your co-host Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. Good morning, coaches. This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain. That over there is Coach Kenny Simpson. Coach, y'all are finally back in school, I see.
Yeah, I think we're the only school within a big radius that's going. We're doing limited bus routes. Arkansas, when you get hit by snow, we're just not used to dealing with it, not used to clearing snow out. And so the main roads are good, but, other ones are not so good. So it's one of those days where I bet we'll have limited attendance here, but we should be getting warmer weather and then hopefully back to normal, at least a little bit. I got a clinic coming up at the school Friday, so I'm kind of hoping that we're supposed to be clear by then. All the warmer weather is hopefully coming.
Right. Yeah, we didn't have to be out today. My kids actually went back Friday, and the Army said that we came in last Wednesday no matter what, so it was great. Pretty good little snowstorm there. Honestly, I was hoping for some more this past weekend. It looks like it all went away. So.
We left here. Of course, Jamie and my wife and I were in San Diego doing the clinic when the snowstorm hit. So we're in nice weather, on the beach, all that kind of stuff. And then we fly into the snowstorm, and I was whining and complaining about how cold it was. Then I was honored to go speak at the National Wing T Clinic. That's in Pittsburgh. I think I sent you a screenshot. It was like negative 11.
Yeah.
And I went, my goodness gracious, that was the coldest.
Kenny likes awards unless he has to be in negative temperatures, right?
No, I sprinted to the little airport shuttle, stayed in the hotel the whole time, sprinted back to the airport shuttle. I enjoyed it. They do a great job with their clinic, but my goodness, Pittsburgh in January, they might want to rethink that weekend and that location because it was cold.
You do a lot of logistics with all these the gun T clinics, and so I often hear you say, like, I'm not going to like Minneapolis in January, or I'm not going to Boston until it's April, or so. A lot of people don't think like that. Like, they're just used to it. Like, we're just gonna host it because that's where we live or whatever. So.
And they're tougher than I am for sure. I've found that, like, if I host a clinic in San Diego, we had 3 schools fly from like Idaho or
yeah, they're trying to get out of San
Diego. I don't know if I hosted a clinic in Chicago in January if guys from like Florida would fly to Chicago.
Right.
You're probably not going to do that. So we're gun T wise, we are definitely weather sensitive.
I love it. I got to make a little joke on Facebook about Kenny being in multiple layers, even at his house. Snow's on the ground. Man's got a jacket, a sweater, and a vest on. But I'm glad you survived the cold, Kenny. I don't know what I would do without you, man. It's I broke my mic. Hang on just a second. There we go.
You enjoyed that clinic, Dana. And guys are listening to this. If you've not had a chance to go here, National Wing T Clinic, and then there's one that is out in the south. If you're out in the Georgia area, the Southeast Wing T Clinic, both those are, in my opinion, other than the gun T clinics, which obviously are my baby, those are very well-run clinics. It's a very good place to go hear lots of guys that are specifically in your niche, and I'd highly kind of encourage you to do that. We've got a couple gun T clinics coming up. So we've got one coming up. If you're listening live, we got one coming up at my host school Friday. That's going to be February 6th and 7th. And you can do the little 6-7 deal if you want to.
Hey.
It's coming up. Yeah, there you go. That's going to be a good one. We're going to talk defense. I'm going to have my own coaches do a couple sessions. Price Holmes, who's I think one of the best strength guys in the country. I just lost him to being a head coach, but
I say he's moved on to another place, didn't he?
So it's neat. It's pretty proud of him and excited for him. But he's going to do a strength and conditioning one at this clinic, and then you're going to have a lot of other ones. Then we take a week off because Valentine's weekend. You're going to take care of the honey. And then the next weekend, I'm going to Sacramento area. Then the next weekend, I think we're going to Houston, taking my youngest son with me to that one. And then we have Ohio and Boston. So a lot of stuff coming up. So a lot of opportunities. If you haven't heard of Gun T Clinic, if you're listening to this and you're like, Coach, I can't fly to any of those places or go wherever, we do offer like our recordings. We'll record the national clinic. So it's an opportunity to, even if you can't be there in person, get to kind of see the content. Nothing beats live, but the video is better than probably nothing.
That's right. Yeah, I just think the context and the being in a room, be able to ask questions live, like, oh man, it's worth it. It's worth just getting to a clinic, getting the videos. It just feels like I got on Glacier Clinic or something, right? Like it just the feel is different. So, I'm glad we're talking clinics. Joe and I are going to Boston, March 13th and 14th. If you want to come learn about the 425 defense, you can come up to the Joe Daniel 425 Defensive Clinic in Boston. We're looking at adding Naples, Florida. Coach PJ Gibbs, of course, been on the podcast a couple times. PJ is going to probably host us. We're trying to iron out dates. So somewhere end of April, beginning of May. I'm working around like military dates. And Joe, if you don't know, is a professional power lifter. Or he does like Olympic lifts. So he's got a competition and we're having a baby. And it's like life is busy this spring. But we should be able to get down there in one of those 2 weeks. So if you're in the Florida area and you're not wanting to go, like you said, Kenny, fly to Boston in March, like I get it, although Boston's amazing. But I think we're going to be able to add one more down there. So stay tuned.
Said Boston, heads up, because I'm doing the same clinic the same weekend, or different clinic, but same weekend. They think Boston's over St. Patrick's Day weekend.
It is.
So it could be a little bit different. Just heads up.
That could be pretty fun. Huh. I didn't think about that either. Look at that. We're learning all the time. Logistically, because that's a word. Jesus Christ. Anyway, let's talk. Give me a quote of the week real quick, Coach, and then we'll jump in and talk some football.
Yeah. So quote of the week coming from Team Themes Volume 6, which will be released. I usually try to release these around May. But we have 5 other options. So if you want a Team Themes book, you can go to fbcoachsimpson.com and get them. Team Themes Volume 6. This one's from John Wooden, and the theme that week is poise. I thought that was a good idea, so we're going to use that one. It says the calmest person in the room is usually the most dangerous. I thought it was just a simple, easy quote. We're going to talk today about counting numbers and counting the box, and a lot of times the best offensive coordinators are that. They're calm, they use logic, they use reason. Emotion is good. There's nothing wrong with being emotional and encouraging your players, but you can have all the emotion you want. If you're emotionally not using logic, it's not going to help you a whole lot as a play caller. So I thought that was a pretty good one when it dealt with poise. Do want to kind of mention, too, one other quick announcement before we kind of get into what we're doing. I am working on, I think it's almost live, guntsystem.com.
What?
I get hit up by guys all the time about, Coach, there's 1,000 things on your website. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. And because originally it started out where there were 3 things. Well, now it's grown. So now we are going to move all the gun tee stuff. So if you're listening to me, and don't worry, we're not just going to do it tomorrow. So it's going to be a slow migration. But if you want to find gun tee specific, so our gun tee system, our gun tee books, our gun tee PowerPoints, downloads, clinics, all of that is going to be moved to guntsystem.com.
Perfect. I mean, that's a good idea. This is you say it all the time. Like, you can find almost all this on the internet. So what you charge for is put it all in one place. So, now it'll all be in one place. I like that.
Daniel. So we did just release the complete guide to buck sweep, 175 pages, all things buck sweep. That thing was a massive book to write. It took me a little bit to get it done. It is out now. So it's over at both those websites, either fbcoachsimpson.com or guntsystem.com. All of them are over there. So if you want to go get information on how to run buck sweep from the shotgun, everything we do, RPOs, formations, problem solving, drills, it's all in one resource now. Complete guide to buck sweep from the shotgun.
I love it. We saw a little comment there talking about Jocko Willink's Extreme Ownership, Chapter 7. That is the Stay Calm chapter. I love that, Coach. Anytime you're referencing that book, you're gonna pique my attention. There is a difference in calling from the gut and then calling from emotion, right? I think 100%. Like, you guys don't get that confused. We're not saying that like you need to read off of a analytical sheet every play and all that. And as we get into here blocking the box and how to count the box, et cetera, making decisions based on numbers is great. Sometimes you just have a dude that's hot and you can just hand him the ball and say, go get 5 yards. So don't overthink this today, but we're just trying to give you another tool.
Football games, whiteboard. We're going to talk a lot about whiteboard stuff here, but ultimately, my 5 might be better than your 6.
Right.
And then this stuff, and don't overthink it, but I think we're making some assumptions on this. We're making assumptions that both teams are relatively equal.
Yeah.
And how do you create advantages for your kids if that's the case?
Yeah. Real quick, I want to talk about the sponsors. You guys need to be heading over to asports.com, or emailing Mark Bridges. That's mark.bridges@asports.com. Get the conversation started about a board. I know we're just in February. Happy Groundhog's Day, by the way. I think if he saw his shadows, so we have 6 more weeks of winter. So congratulations. If you don't like the cold, you get 6 more weeks of it. Anyway, email Mark, have a conversation about what A Sports can do for you. I know they're the ability to kind of build out your dream and help you put whatever in you need. You can get things as nice as Kenny's. You can get smaller. You can get larger. You can do whatever you want to do, right? There's many, many options out there for video boards and how you can dress up your stadium. If you're a basketball guy, they can definitely do the, I'm forgetting the word for auditorium, gymnasium, whatever y'all call those things. Thank you. Field house. That's what they used to call them, isn't it? The old field house. Anyway, call Mark or email mark.bridges@asports.com. Winning Edge Performance Analytics. Remember that Doug is working on that 2.0 right now. Jump over to winningedgeperformanceanalytics.com. And when you sign up, use the code 20OFF Coaching 101. It'll get you 20% off your first year with his program. And then, of course, Blended Threads LLC. Morgan down there, and Steve is my buddy. Morgan is his daughter. They are rocking and rolling. I've already had some coaches calling me. I absolutely accept that. Call me, and we can kind of go through, and I can show you what they have available, etc. All the monies, details, and all that, you'll just have to go through Morgan. Morgan at blendedthreadsllc.com. Jump in and guys, outfit your kids or your staff. Or I think the biggest thing is just creating almost like a team store. That was one thing I loved about Owasso when I was there, is like when you came in the stadium, you could go in the team store and buy a coat, a jacket, an umbrella, whatever you needed. They had it, hats, all that good stuff as well. So the ability to do that at get some stuff at a good rate, resell it to the public, make some monies. I think it's a neat little fundraiser. Anyway, it's a chance to do all that. So blendedthreadsllc.com. All right, Kenny, let's talk about it, man. First and foremost, we're talking about counting the box or blocking the box. We're talking about getting numbers right so your run game can take off, or making other decisions, right? Maybe it isn't going to run. I tell you this is how you and Joe were always connected through me. I was working with a guy who was a Joe Daniel person, but he ran the gun tee. So he had paid for both of your products. And he was a youth coach, and he would get like a 7-man defensive line. And they would have like double A, they have their D linemen in double ones or 2 eyes, if you will. And then they would have like 5s, and they would just stack the line. And he was like, how do I run buck against this? I'm like, well, you don't, coach. You gotta go outside, right? If they're going to put 9 guys between your tackles, just throw the RPO, just throw it out there and let a kid. Now, of course, it's youth level, so that's a little bit scarier to say, hey, turn and read, or even if it's a called throw. But that was, you've got to understand there's sometimes you aren't running into that box, right? And that's why we're kind of talking today is about like making that decision. What are you going to call in this next play based on all these things? So first and foremost, Kenny, let's just get the bases out of the way. Kind of what is a box and why do we need to identify it?
Yeah, I'm going to give kind of the general term. I know I've kind of seen you're going to talk a lot more about that, and then I'll talk specifically kind of how we look at it, which is a little bit different. So the general term of a box is basically defensive linemen and linebackers from tackle to tackle, or if you have a tight end, from tight end to tackle. So you're counting, we have 5 blockers, or we have 6 blockers, or we maybe have 7 blockers. We're kind of in a heavier set. And you just draw a line, from the tight end vertically, and you go about 5 yards. How many guys do they have in the box? How many guys do we have in the box? That's the general term. We take this a step farther. We're looking for what we call a +1. So basically the idea is we're looking for where do we have the advantage in the different quadrants on the field. So we look at run game to the right and to the left, and we look at pass game to the right and to the left. So let me explain that a little farther. If you watch our offense, we have a tight end and a wing. let's just say we've put them to the right. Okay, so we put our tight end and our wing to the right. So now we have a center, a guard, a tackle, a tight end, and a wing. So we got 4 blockers on the right. But on the left, we only got 2. We got a guard and a tackle. That's it.
Right.
And then we have twins to the field. So twins to the left. Okay, so we're going to look at the box first. If we have 4 guys to block on the right side, and you have 4 guys to block, the defenders, and we count defenders as not DBs. Like, I don't count defenders as a safety or a corner. I know a lot of defensive coordinators are going to get mad at me for saying that.
That's okay.
But the idea being, if your safety makes a tackle, then you've declared we need to throw the ball. Like, if you're bringing a DB whose job is to cover, and now he's tackling, we call that a conflict player. And once you put him in conflict, we need to call the opposite. So if you're trying to gain a bonus by bringing a DB to make tackles, then we need to throw it. That's just kind of just kind of assume that. But we're going to look at the right side. We got 4 and you got 4. We're going to call that a 0. Like, we're even. It's not bad to call a run against that, but I'm making assumptions that my guys can out execute your guys.
Right.
Okay. Then we're going to look to the left. We only have 2 blockers over there. Maybe you have 3. Well, that's not good. So we don't want to run a play to the left because you have more guys than we can block. Then we look at DBs. Okay, who's in coverage? Whose primary responsibility is coverage? And we're going to say, okay, we have twins to the left, and you have 2 guys out there to cover our 2. Well, that's a 0. That's not a bad place. If we feel we can out execute you, we can take that. We look over to the right, and maybe you have 1 high safety. So you have 1 guy to cover 2 guys. So if you're looking at that, the play call should be throw the ball to the right, because we're 0, run the ball to the right. We're 0, throw the ball to the left. We're -1, run the ball to the left. Don't want to do that. And we're +1, throw the ball to the right. And that's kind of how we look at it. If we were in trips and you had 2 guys to cover 3, we're +1 to throw the ball to the left. If maybe we're tight end, wing, and a receiver, so we've pulled a guy, and now we have potentially 4 guys there to block 3, we should run the ball to the right. And that's kind of how we look at it. 0 is not a bad number. Because 0 just means we're even, but we're trying to at all times create +1. And I think the second question you're going to ask is like how we do that. But that's how we define it. We define it as not just the box. We want to be more specific. The box to the strong side, the box to the quick side, the pass to the strong side, or the pass to the quick side.
And that's a really good way to look at it, coach. It's like you have to, and we're going to talk later about teaching your kids to count this, but even if you got a coach in the box that's telling you, what you're getting, formations has gone, if you go back to like the pro I days, I'm sure that counting the box was a lot simpler, right? But nowadays, right, you're building tight end wing with trips away, twins away. People are running trips and quads and whatever you call 5 receivers. And we're doing all this crazy stuff to get numbers, right? To get that numbers advantage. Empty has probably ran more in the last 2 years than ever in the history of football, it feels like, because we're seeing that we can thin the box out and just run the quarterback, which is just another version of this, right? If I empty it out, do you lighten the box enough? I can go 5-on-5 or whatever. So that's a great way to look at it, is how you're doing it side by side, strong versus weak. And I think that's pretty much how we're all doing it. I'm not afraid to count a safety in the box because a lot of guys are rolling those guys down. So that's kind of a good question. Like, do you count apex defenders? Do you count if you're on a condensed edge and there's a corner sitting out there, is he technically in the box because you've tied in wing, he's rolled down to play cover 2 or whatever they're going to run.
We would count him as a box player if he was rolled down.
Right. So all of those are little variations of a base rule, right, of how we're going to count that down. So I think what you also have to get into is intent versus alignment. Just because they're aligned there, we talk about a corner on a tight end wing side. Look, I can tell you this, as a coach, I'm not even aligning him there, but if I am, he's probably bailing to a cover 3. So the intent is not for him it's for you to look over there and see a defender. but he's probably not actually kept playing the box whatsoever, right? You get into your 7, 8, and 9-man spacing stuff and start understanding that. And if you haven't, look, if you're in your first 5 years, you've probably not even heard of that, and that's okay. I think that you need to start getting into that, understanding what 2 high safety boxes look like, 1 high safety boxes, et cetera. But sometimes those guys are aligned just to appease the football gods. And hey, we have an edge setter out here. We have a force guy that's not tucked in, but it's a kid who's bailing immediately. Or, a lot of people are using their kind of nickels to go pass first. So they're going to be reading a number 2 or trying to get out under number 1 or whatever. And you're running the rock right to him. So, sometimes those guys' intention is much different than their alignment. So you need to understand that. I think forcing those defenders and kind of, what the box is, forcing those defenders to declare to alleviate that intent versus alignment, but doing it with formations. Kenny, you're the king of creating all these chaotic formations. You and Cameron Palmer have taught me more about formations than I probably will ever need to know in my life. But that's a great way to get, right? You build a condensed edge. What is that kid really doing? Because if that corner who can't tackle does roll down on that tight end wing, he's probably trying to commit right there to, I'm going to come play this. Well, no, you're not. We're going to laugh at you as we run around you here in just a second. Hang on. But motions, shifts and motions, getting people to move. I remember we had a team came to town when I was down at Stillwell, and we were trying to run cover 1, and we ran with motion. But guess who that guy was? He was our force defender in a 4-2-5. So it was like we ran off our force defender to cover a receiver, and they were just running outside zone over there, right? So our alignment versus our intent, and we put that kid in conflict because we were terrible coaches at the time. We gave him too many things to do, and they found that. But using formation, shifts, motions, all that to make kids declare, are they a box player? Are they really just trying to get out of there and be a pass defender? So all great things. As we jump into part 2 here, what are kind of the run game answers to these different boxes? So I love what you're doing strong and weak. So let's stick with that. +1, -1, etc. What are kind of some of your run game answers? And I guess pass game, because we're talking to the RPO king here. So you mentioned a little bit before, but how are you solving those problems when you start getting all these weird counts?
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of it. First thing you're going to do is you're going to use formations. Can you formation to where you're gaining an advantage? So you see all these crazy unbalanced formations, or you mentioned empties, kind of a cheat code if you have an athletic quarterback to, even Indiana to win a national championship, ran the quarterback to make it happen. So there's a lot of things you can do. We're going to try to use motions or shifts to kind of switch where our numbers go. So, we have a tight end wing, or we have a wing, or we have whatever, and then we bring him from the right side to the left side. How are you handling that? Are you moving your DBs to get another guy in the box? And so we use shifts a lot to kind of change the strength. It's not so much that your box probably won't change the numbers, but we might create better angles, or you may not shift over quite enough, and now we have an advantage there. So we're going to try to do that. You can also motion. We motion a lot to kind of create numbers in the pass game. We'll shift a running back out late, or we'll bring a wing across in motion late. And now you were going to cover with 2 guys, 2-on-2. You felt good about that. Now here comes a motion, and now we might have 3-on-2. Or even if we have 3-on-3, it might be a guy you didn't really want to cover with, or he's coming from a disadvantaged position. Maybe an inside linebacker who's trying to sprint over there and cover. So you can use motions and shifts. You can do the same in the run game. You can motion into running the ball. Bring a guy into the box. A lot of teams are doing that now, where they'll bring a receiver in motion, and he comes into the box. So now you've added your count of who's blocking, and they really didn't. Or they brought a corner who, like Daniel mentioned, you don't really count him. Then you've kind of created it. So motion shifts are a big one. I'm a big fan, and it's becoming a big thing, of condensed formations. It's an easy way to get a blocker into the box where you can squeeze a willing blocker at receiver. You put that corner in a really big place of conflict. They don't really want to play inside leverage and leave the whole field open. So most of the time, the DBs will continue to play outside leverage, which means they're not really a box player. and then you can bring your corner into the box, or not your corner, your receiver into the box to block, and now you've changed the numbers. So if I've got tight end, wing, receiver, and my receiver is condensed enough where he can go block in the box, I don't have 4 blockers, I got 5. So you may think, oh, we have 4 on 4. Not really. We're going to bring our receiver in there to make it happen, or we pull a lot. So you could count that. Now, I know you can also talk about defense as well. Their backside linebacker could fit that too, and he can. But if you're pulling players or you're leading with skill players, you involve your quarterback in the run game, where the running back now is going to go block for the quarterback. Now you don't have 5 linemen, you have 5 linemen plus a running back. So you have 6. And so defenses are having a hard time with that because fitting quarterback run is difficult. They only have 11 players. And if your quarterback's a willing runner, it's hard to get good numbers in the pass and in the run. That's why a lot of teams are going to an athletic quarterback because it's easier to get the numbers up that way. I think another way you can do it, use the running back in the passing game. All right, you got 2 on 2 out there, maybe even 3 on 2 with our receivers, and you're getting underneath it or whatever. But we're going to use the running back in the passing game. And now you feel like you have numbers, but we feel like, okay, if we involve a backfield player out there, we have numbers. Like, okay, you got 2 on 2, but what if we run both our receivers on end breakers and the running back runs a flare? We kind of feel like we've got the advantage now, or running screen game to your running back or whatever it is. So you're seeing a whole lot of that stuff where in our offense, the tight end wing kind of serving that purpose too. But in spread offenses, when you're involving H-back, tight end, running backs in the passing game, you can create a +1 by shifting them out there, motioning them out there, or just flaring them from the backfield into whatever it is. That's why that running backs catching the ball will become a thing in the NFL for the last probably 10 years. The same, I kind of mentioned it with the quarterback. Daniel mentioned it earlier. If you're a new coach and you want to have good success, put an athletic kid at quarterback and go empty and run him. Like that's going to be now. You have to be careful because you can't just do that 30 times a game, or
right.
Most kids aren't going to withstand that or hold up to that. But that's the ultimate cheat code. And you saw even at the highest level, you saw Indiana, they weren't going to run their guy all the time, but when they had to win a game on 4th and 5, what they run? Quarterback draw. What are people doing on those, even the NFL, or the Buffalo Bills do, Philadelphia Eagles do when they got to have it? They put their athletic quarterback and they run him. And so the reason they do that is because it's really difficult to get numbers to match quarterback run game, because most defensive coordinators are doing what we're talking about here. All right, you have 5 guys to block. Let's make sure we have 5 in the box. You have 6 guys to block. Let's make sure we have 6 in the box. They're not accounting for the running back becoming an additional blocker. And so now I have 5 plus a running back. Now I have 6 versus 5 if I'm willing to run him.
Yeah. No, the being +1 in the run game with the quarterback run that's gnarly stuff, man. And it's hard to – it breaks all the traditional defenses, right? Like we've got all these numbers 3/2 and 2/1, and we're numbers even in the box and all this stuff. But by God, you add an extra lead blocker right now, it breaks all of the traditional stuff. So it's very hard to cover 5 receivers down the field and a guy that's just running around in the backfield like that. That's hard to do, right? At least hard to do soundly. So, when we're looking at these numbers, run game in the box, I think you got to look at the biggest thing is going to be numbers versus leverage. So we've kind of talked about, can you talk about being +1 or zeroed, evened up, whatever? Obviously, you're not going to run into a -1 unless you just are manhandling people. That's the other thing is we're pretending right now. You said to start the show, all of our kids are 1s and all of their kids are 1s, but
right.
I mean, if they've got a 0.5 out there and you've got a 1.5, well, you're already plus in the run game, so it's okay. But it could be the other way, right? Sometimes you're starting on the other side of that, where your kids are all 0.5s and theirs are all 1s or better. So you got to have an understanding there that sometimes you're just going to be outnumbered. But you got to have a concept of I can be outnumbered somewhere and still call a play to that side because we have them out leveraged, right? If you think about outside zone, If I have got just an H back who's off the line, okay, or a Y off type of situation, and they want to run a 4-3 box, I have 6 blockers. They have 7 defenders in the box, not including their 2 high safety. However, I can still reach him. I still have that leverage advantage, and I can get outside zone going, right? And the next guy that has to come is tucked in from probably a 50 backer, a 60, somewhere in there, right? Their outside backer. He's got to work his way all the way over the edge outside of that outside zone block. So yes, they may have us outnumbered to that edge or even in the box, but we can still take advantage of having them out leveraged. The same thing, we start getting these, and I wanted to actually should have talked about counting safeties first, but if you get people who are going to just try to cover zero blitz you, but you have trap called, no one cares if you're bringing three DB types off the edge, right? It's going to hit so fast. It's not. In fact, you've done me a great service by emptying out all of your second level or third level players. So the idea that you're outnumbered and you can't call a play over there, once you understand leverage and you can work formation, shifts, and motions to gain that leverage back, then that's absolutely an advantage for you, right? It's okay. Go run over there and test them out. Once again, maybe their kids are just that much better. They execute better, whatever. But don't think just because you're outnumbered that you can't out leverage someone. I like to think about counting down the box or picking run game plays the same way that you teach your quarterback to look at, to figure out what coverage they're in. Do I have 2 high safety? If there's 2 high safeties, you have to understand that they don't have an outside force player, or they've given up a gap inside. One of the two. They can't do both. You can't have 2 high safety and think that you're going to fit you can't be gap sound. That guy's coming really, really late to come down from that 2 high safety look, and you're just so if I get 2 high safety as a young quarterback or as an OC, you need to be thinking about what gap are they not filling? Where are they not gap sound right now? Because they're trying to play with 7 box defenders. They've got 2 up, right? Which is the whole 7-man spacing idea. If they get you into 1 high, or if you get them into 1 high safety, well, now they're pretty much gapped out. That's where you have to start looking, like you said, Kenny, strong and weak and all that, when you get them into a 1 high. So that's a really easy place to start when you're trying to count these boxes down. Are they 2 high or are they 1 high? Because if they're 1 high, that means they've got outside, hybrid players or outside backers or whatever you want to call them, safeties, but they're ready to play the box right now. Probably giving you a cover 3 look, and they're going to have eyes on the run play. So you've got to consider that. Same thing with looking at DBs, right? If a corner is in cover 2, that means he's probably the force player. So if I get him an outside leverage to 2 high safety, you have to understand that the guy that's supposed to keep you from running outside is now a DB. And Kenny just said we don't even count them. So that's a good place to take your chances. Yes, they may be gap sound, they may be number sound, but now you've got them out-bodied, basically, right? You should be able to get some type of a blocking personnel out there on their pass coverage personnel and take advantage of that. So just really easy ways to look at it. I highly recommend you guys look at 7, 8, and 9-man spacing for those boxes. And consider your run plays against them. I guess we will jump into the last piece here, and that's kind of how are you teaching your players, which I accidentally stumbled into there a little bit. My notes are all messed up. So, Kenny, let's how are you teaching your players to count the box or look for advantages, etc.
The only guy we're really probably working with that on is our quarterback. Our coaches will count. We'll count the box and we'll try to figure out what's creating different things. And really, even on that, I don't ask my coaches to do too much. I'll ask my receiver coach to look for, okay, what are we getting to trips, or what are we getting to quads, or what are we getting to single? Basically he's looking at his area, where the offensive line coach is looking at, what are we getting in the box versus different looks, unbalanced versus that. So they're kind of looking at their own specific places, where I'm trying to look at the big picture. And our quarterbacks, a lot of times for them, it's when we get in the RPO game is when they're starting to really look for box versus not box. They don't really care about it in our traditional pass game, play action, or run game, because I'm not really asking them to. They're not going to change based off of one.
Right.
But when we get into RPO world, now it will impact it, because now there's an option for them. We could throw it or we could run it. So one of the easiest ways to do it is just like you mentioned, Daniel, you're counting. If we got twins out there, what do we want to throw this year? And I think some guys teach it very different. Some guys say, well, there's 1-on-2, we're going to throw it. There's basically a corner, like cover 3 corner, and an outside linebacker who's playing both, then we're going to throw it. Some years when we've had pretty decent kids on the edge, I don't really care if they're even. So we simply teach leverage of the box player. So I'm not asking him to count. If it's 2-on-2 and a safety's playing at 8 yards, we're still not going to count him because we think our kid's better than him.
Right.
So we may just tell him, instead of reading the box, read this. One way we've done to help our quarterbacks is you do it with quick motions. So it's an easy read for them then. Like, we may shift the running back late, or we may bring our wing all the way across in motion, or we may bring a guy who's in the box, out of the box, however we want to do that. And then we just tell them, if nobody goes with him, you're throwing the whatever concept we're throwing. If somebody leaves, be that a linebacker, be that an outside linebacker widens, a safety rolls down to take it, somebody leaves the run area, then we're going to run the ball, or we're going to run whatever concept we've got that's going with the run game. So it's a nice, easy way if you're trying to teach quarterbacks. You want to get in the RPO world, and it's an easy indicator. Motion goes out, no one goes with them, throw it. Motion goes out, somebody goes with them, we're running it, or we're reading a run option, or whatever we're doing in there. So that's kind of how we have done it. It keeps it a little cleaner for the quarterback. He doesn't have to know all the stuff we just talked about. He just knows nobody went, take it, or somebody went, we're going to do something different.
I remember when I first got into coaching, I talked to O-line coach over at one of the Big 5 schools in the Tulsa metro. I think he was with Broken Arrow. But he talked about allowing his quarterback to come out and count and find an advantage to run and play right or left. And it's kind of the old school find the bubble idea, right? Like, if I see a 1-tech, I want to run my inside zone that direction. So he may just get a play call with no direction, and now he's going to make that call at the line because I don't want my center trying to double away from a 1. It makes inside zone weird. But I wish I could remember more of that conversation. I think I have it recorded on my computer somewhere, but that was something I took away from that. Was it's okay to go out and let your quarterback count, even if it's counting helmets, right? If we're going to be in 11 personnel or 20 personnel, whatever you people call it, Y-off stuff, letting him go out and count. Hey, I've got 3 defenders on this side and I got 4 over there. Let's run to the 3 side because we've got them outnumbered, or we can put a kid in motion and get over there, right? Like, it's okay to let kids have a little bit of autonomy. I think you do have to be careful about how much you give them, though, right? And that's why the rules-based blocking is so big to me, because it takes a lot of that away. Yes, it's autonomy within a very strict set of rules, whether that's your gap down backer stuff or whatever, because that cleans up whatever unnecessary junk you have inside, and you just let that quarterback worry about one kid. And Kenny, I love the way you're handling that, RPOs, run read options, all the fun stuff there. But just let a kid go out and count and make a play call, make an audible, if you will, right? Hey, we were going right. They're overloaded right. They have a weakness to the left. We're going to switch this whole thing right now. I think that's okay if you have that kid. I'm not telling you that every kid can go out and do it, but I think you have to really evaluate what your kids can handle and see if that's something you can get into. But letting them go out and make some decisions pre-snap, I think, is absolutely okay. Just don't give them more than they can handle. So once again, we're looking at numbers, leverage. Same thing, dude. If you come out and you got a tight end out there and they have nobody outside your tight end, it's okay to call play over there. Like, let's go run right there. We have leverage now. You know what I mean? I don't know that's going to be hard for some coaches, and giving up that much or giving that much freedom to a quarterback. But some of these cats are pretty good at it. Now, they may not see everything the way you do. And you may be and Kenny, I know you call plays and you're just telling them, like, you have even determined this RPO I want to throw, if at all possible, versus we really want to keep this. Basically, you're on an alert, right? You have an RPO as an alert rather than a.
Yeah, and that depends. Like, Daniel, what you're talking about too just depends on where you are. Like, if you're at a place where you've got like I'm about to have a 3rd-year quarterback coming back. First time I've had that in a long, long time. He's going to have more of that, what you're talking about. He's going to have more opportunities to have a huge impact mentally on the game. Well, as a sophomore, we're not doing that.
Right.
We're going to keep the game as small as we can for him. And as a junior, it got bigger. As a senior, it'll get bigger. So I think what you're talking about is fine to do.
Yeah.
It just can your guy handle that? I think sometimes we make assumptions they can handle more than they really can handle, and we got to be careful with that.
100%. Well, boss man, I think we crushed through this one today. It's one of our shorter episodes, honestly, but it was a good one. I wanted to talk about it. I want to get it out there as people are starting to install their offenses and defenses and stuff. If you're a defensive coordinator, you can think the same way here, right? You can think about, like, have you shown the box to be heavier than what you intend? We talked earlier about intent versus alignment. Maybe some guys are, I'm going to show some more people in the box and then roll them out, or show more people in the box, but they're really a pass first player. Or I'm going to hide them and roll down. That's what a lot of people do, right? They start in too high and then roll to a cover 3 look, and they're adding to the box late. Like, all those are great. Understand the other side's probably counting. They're probably scheming. They're probably trying to figure out where they can gain that advantage, space, numbers, and leverage. So defensively, you need to be thinking about this stuff as well. Yeah. Sponsors, I guess. It is a short episode. I feel like we're cutting it off too early almost. But
that's good. Well, I've been sitting here watching them. We just sent out the email about the new book coming out, so a lot of guys have been ordering it. I think we're giving out a free PowerPoint the first 100, and we're at like 89 orders already. So if you're wanting to get that free PowerPoint that comes with the Buck Sweep deal, man, make sure you order it now, because I'm down to like the last 11. Jamie already told me I should have ordered more. We're probably going to go out of those pretty quick. So that's over at FB Coach Simpson, or the new website we're doing, guntsystem.com. So it's at both those websites. You could order from either one.
Love it. Jump over to patreon.com/Chamberlain Football Consulting. You can find multiple tiers there, where if you're needing help coaching, needing help breaking down stuff, learning anything, developing a coach, I've probably got a tier for you over there. Don't forget about all the clinics coming up. I know Kenny's is stacked out, right? I mean, he's even trying to continue adding to that as we speak. If you're a coach that's in the Orlando area, Kenny needs a host site. So if you'd like the Gun T to come to Florida, this is the time. He can mention the dates, Coach. I can't remember what they are.
Yeah, I'm trying to set it around my spring break. We're going to Florida anyway, so you might as well talk football while we're down there. So March 20th and 21st, or 27th and 28th, I think, are the day. That's Friday, Saturday. I've got a few coaches that have reached out and trying to find what site would work best for everybody to try to go to. So if you're interested, just reach out.
Yep. Awesome. Don't forget about the 425 Defensive Clinic up in Boston, March 13th and 14th. Like I said, I think we're going to try to lock one up in Florida, go hang out with PJ Gibbs a little bit. Coming up in late April or early May. Then more details will come out on that as we get a little bit closer. Social media wise, I'm at Coach Chambo OK on Twitter/X. You can email me at Chamberlain Football Consulting. Kenny is at everything at FB Coach Simpson. So the website, the email, fbcoachsimpson@gmail.com and fbcoachsimpson.com. And the newly about to go live, what is it? guntsystem.com.
Let me read it. guntsystem.com.
No extra S. Perfect. The podcast is at Coaching101Pod on Twitter/X. You can find us there. You can go live or watch us when we go live or post whatever things we do. We want to thank you for being a listener to the Coaching 101 podcast. We'll hope you join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know when the new episodes are out. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.